morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Glad to see you and be with you all today. Hello, Matt. Good morning. Welcome, Kathy. It's morning time here. Welcome, Amy. It's quite early there. Oh, look at the bird. Do y'all hear all the beautiful bird sounds this morning? Welcome, Suze. I'm joining you live from my rooftop terrace in Mexico. So, excited to be here with you all. Hola, buenos dias, Andrea. Glad to see you. I know one person here knows the medical medium besides me, but if anybody does know medical medium and his teachings, ooh, it's very windy. Today I'm doing a 9-day raw fruit and vegetable cleanse from the medical medium. So it's morning 1 right now. So y'all let me know if the wind is too much, and I may go downstairs if that's the case. Usually it's windy at night this time of year. So, and thank you for joining me. If you're here on YouTube, I'm also double live streaming there. So if you subscribe over there, you can watch this same video. It's being double live streamed. And when it's finished, it will automatically be available as a recording over there that you can watch if you don't get to finish today or want to visit any of my other lives from Insight Timer. So if you are new to me, say hello. And I'm Natalie, spiritual life coach and Reiki Master Teacher. Give me a follow here if you don't already. Also, as I said, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. Check my website. Welcome, Lorette. Nice to see you. Yeah, it's kind of gusty, so it's slowed for the minute. But yeah, keep me posted if it interferes. So make sure to check out my offerings here, my meditations, and all that good stuff. I just sent a newsletter out to my email list, which hasn't been done in a while. And I'm really excited about it because I worked hard to create a resource for those and to share with my coaching clients as well. That's why I created it, but it's called The End of Self-Gaslighting. So who here has never heard of gaslighting at all? I would imagine the answer would be nobody. But if somebody here doesn't know what gaslighting is, speak up. But the other, this other layer is self-gaslighting. So has that concept come across your field at any time, or is that something new? And even if you don't know what it is, like, really, does it resonate? Excuse me. So Loretta, I do not have courses yet here on Insight Timer. I do offer Reiki training one-on-one. So if that's interesting to anybody, you can reach out. Hi, Janice. Yeah, so gaslighting is basically the invalidation of others' feelings. Very, very simply. Self-gaslighting is invalidating our own feelings. So this can be really powerful to even be aware of, because I imagine most people don't even know they do it. Well, I can just speak for myself. I didn't know that I was making myself wrong for my feelings all the time. So my own life coach that I work with in a session with me, he pointed it out, and then he worked with me in the session to validate myself and my feelings, and it was such a powerful experience. So since that point, I've been bringing that into my work with my own coaching clients, and of course continuing to work on it with myself. And because I'm talking about it so much, I'm like, I want to create something to share so people can use this for themselves for peace and freedom. So if you want that, send me a private message. I'll share the resource with you. And it goes into what we're going to talk about today, Byron Katie and the work of Byron Katie. It all ties together. So we'll go ahead and switch gears into that. So give me your give me a read from everybody that's here. Do you know Byron Katie? Yes or no? And we'll start from that. Hello, Sandy. I don't know if y'all can hear the very loud leaf blower every Saturday morning. So we just get to be with that. If you guys hear it, it'll stop soon. So wonderful. Janice, Byron Katie, doesn't know who that is. Great. So I'm excited because I have talked about Byron Katie quite a bit in my live streams over the years. And we've even done a book study on her booklet. And when I went home to the US in November, I found my booklet of Byron Katie. I got to see her live in person in Los Angeles. And so part of that was receiving this. So this is her introductory booklet about the work of Byron Katie. This is available free on her website as a download. So if you are interested in getting this, and also I can share it with you if you send me a private message. Yeah. I'm just going to pause for a minute. I feel like I'm yelling over the leaf blower. Thank you for sharing that, Loretta, excuse me. So Byron Katie has created a process that she calls the work, which is why it's called the work. This was born out of her own deep suffering. So she was agoraphobic. She was really not functional very much in her life. She struggled with addictions. and, you know, just human dysfunction. But yeah, she didn't leave her house and that kind of a thing for a number of years. So the story goes that she was in a halfway house for recovery, and she woke up. She was sleeping on the floor. The way she says it is that she didn't even feel worthy to sleep in a bed. So she was sleeping on the floor. She was taking a nap. And when she woke up, a cockroach crawled across her leg, and she became enlightened, basically. I mean, she doesn't say that, but that's in essence what she says happened. And it wasn't because of the cockroach. That just happened to be what was happening at the moment. But she had this instant spiritual experience that changed her forever. And she talks about that very detailed, you know, in many places. So if you're interested in more of that story, you know, you can find plenty of places where she tells it. You know, and she had a shift in perception and consciousness, and she realized, she felt the oneness, you know, of everything. And then suddenly she just had a shift from suffering to non-suffering and freedom. And over the years, she created this work of Byron Katie because she saw that people suffered because they were believing their thoughts. So it's very simple. And I want to ask you guys, like, what are your thoughts about that? When you think about suffering in yourself, when you think about pain, when you think about your problems, what do you think creates the dis-ease inside of you? Do you think it's due to the situations and circumstances outside of you that is the reason for your suffering? And there's no, you know, it's not to make anybody wrong. It's, if you do, and that's fine, it's just different levels of consciousness and evolution. Because ultimately, it's, you know, as Viktor Frankl says so perfectly, you know, you can take everything away from a human except their ability to choose their response to any situation. And in that response, the ability to choose your response is your freedom. Viktor Frankl, if anybody doesn't know who that is, let me know. He was a survivor of Auschwitz, and he was a psychiatrist, so he very he has lived experience of being in one of the worst situations a human could be in, and yet seeing how people reacted and responded in that situation. And then he came to the conclusion, you know, really it doesn't matter what happens on the outside, you still have freedom inside to choose your response. And how that ties into this work of Byron Katie is, you know, believing the main problem is, and the only problem is that we believe our thoughts, if they aren't loving. And when we believe our thoughts, we suffer. So it's not about anything that happens on the outside. It's about our perception and the stories that our minds are telling us that we believe. It's not even the story of the mind. It's that we become identified with believing all of our thoughts. And that's the nature of suffering. And that can be a tough pill to swallow for some people, and it makes sense. So, hi Summer Star, welcome. Hi Deborah. That's a good point, Janice. So, yeah, there's a lot that can be done with working with thinking and perceptions. So this work process is, it's a method. It's a method that you can use. So Summer Star knows the work of Byron Katie. So the way it works is she has a tool that's called a Judge Your Neighbor worksheet. And if you've been a coaching client of mine, you've likely filled one out, and we've done it together in session or in between sessions. So what's fun about the work of Byron Katie is you judge your neighbor. You know, we're so good at, again, like the self-gaslighting thing from earlier, right? We're so good at making ourselves wrong and others, but to judge ourselves is, that's easy. And so we don't start there. We judge our neighbor, and our neighbor is anybody. And then she says, like, everyone is us. So when we judge our neighbor and we do the work around that, we free ourselves. So there's a worksheet, and I can send that to you if you send me a message that you fill out. Let's see if the questions are in here. Yeah. So just to give you an idea of this, so you want to think about a situation. So, and then in this situation, time and location, who angers, confuses, or disappoints you, and why? So, how many of you can think of a situation or a person or somebody where you can instantly think, like, I'm hurt, I'm upset, I'm disappointed, I'm sad, I'm let down, I'm pissed off as hell. So that's where you get to start. So it's, that's the fun part, if you will. So in the example that she gives, she says, I am angry with Paul because he doesn't listen to me about his health. So that was her husband, at the time. And he was smoking, and he was lying about smoking and trying to hide it, and she caught him. So this is the example she gives in the worksheet. Hey, Britt, good morning. So you take a situation, a very specific situation, and you do this Judge Your Neighbor worksheet on it. And you come up with statements. So in this example, she says, Paul shouldn't lie to me. And then, very simply, then the actual work process is asking yourself in a meditation 4 questions. Is the thought true? Is the thought true, Paul shouldn't lie to me? And it's yes or no, one answer only. And there's no wrong answer. It's just, how do you feel in your body? If you're like, yeah, he shouldn't have lied, then the answer is yes. Great. Or is that thought true? No, actually, I don't know if she shouldn't have lied to me. Question 2, can you absolutely know that it's true that Paul shouldn't lie to me? Can you absolutely know that it's true? Most of the time, or I'd say many times, people will land on, no, I can't absolutely know that that thought is true in an absolute sense, that he shouldn't have lied to me. I mean, who knows? Maybe he should have. So this is where you start to pull apart the identification and believing of the thought. The third question is, how do I react? What happens when I believe the thought? Paul shouldn't lie to me. So that's easy. You know, when we believe these thoughts and we don't question them and we just totally believe them, you know, if somebody's lied to you, how do you feel? I feel angry if I believe the thought he shouldn't have lied. I feel constriction in my chest. I feel let down. I feel sad. And then what do? Some people might go get drunk or binge eat or maybe go gossip, you know, to their best friend and vent their negative energy onto somebody else, right? So look at all the things that can happen when we believe the thought. Hi, Jen. So you have the judge your neighbor, and I'm just being very like overview with this. So you have the judge your neighbor worksheet. You know, you pull out a thought. I like to work with should and shouldn'ts because those are fun and easy. You know, so her example, Paul shouldn't lie to me. Then you do the work is these 4 questions. Is the thought true? Paul shouldn't lie to me. Yes or no? Can you absolutely know that it's true? And again, there's no right or wrong. If you're still like, yeah, he shouldn't have freaking lied, and that's absolutely true, great. But there's not an I don't know, there's not a yes but, it's just a 1-syllable answer. And it's something you feel. And then the third question, what happens, how do I react when I believe the thought? He shouldn't have lied to me. I might feel certain sensations in the body, and then I might take certain actions or inactions. I might go lay in bed all day and take sleeping pills to sleep and forget. Sorry. So look what happens from this simple thought. So it's really slowing down and questioning and examining our thinking, because we don't question our thoughts. And she says like something like an unquestioned mind is like a suffering mind. I mean, how many of you just believe all your thoughts? I mean, I still do. I do have a separation between just automatically identifying and believing them instantly, and I can work with it. And still, you know, mostly it's just like, oh yeah, well, the thought says this, and I just believe it. And when we believe thoughts like this, we suffer. So that's where the suffering comes from, is the unquestioned belief of the thoughts. And it's, you know, it's common, it's natural, it's normal, it makes sense, it's human. So we don't, you know, if a question or if a thought's positive, if a thought's uplifting, you know, we don't need to question those. You know, and maybe if you're advanced with this work, you know, down the line, great. But if you're, you know, a beginner or an intermediate in the spiritual journey or with Byron Katie's work, then start with this stuff. Start with all the judgments on other people. Yeah. Hi, J.E. Yeah, so I mean, there can be negative thoughts that cause positive change. And I really hear you, Jen. You know, yesterday I've been struggling with something, and I noticed my thoughts in what happens, and maybe you guys can relate, of like being in struggle. Then there's a negative tint to all my thoughts, and then just these negative seething stories about everything. It's like it just changes my perception to where everything is shitty and whatever. And because I've done work, like now I know, like I woke up in that and I was like, here's this pattern again. I'm really hurt about something. And so now my mind is just putting that onto everything in my life at this moment. So it's okay. So there's the self-compassion piece. Like, it makes sense you'd feel this way. And sweetie, right now, let's not believe our thoughts about anything. So when I see this pattern come up, I tell myself that. Any sort of judgment, J.E., that's a great point. Any sort of judgment can be questioned. So again, you know, we want to start very simply for people that are newer in this work, of starting with the judgments on others and doing the Judge Your Neighbor worksheet and working with those judgments. So the fourth question in the work, so we had, is the thought true? Can you absolutely know that it's true? What happens? How do you react when you believe the thought? And then the fourth question is, who would you be without the thought? So here's the freedom. Who would you be without the thought? So in the example of her example of Paul lying, Paul shouldn't lie to me. Who would you be without that thought? So if y'all have a situation in mind, and it's a thought experiment, feel into that. And like I said, this is a meditation, and it's best facilitated with somebody else if you don't have much experience with doing this. You know, it can be effective even if you're doing the worksheet alone and you go through it alone. And it's best to have it be facilitated live with another person, because they can guide you through this process. Yeah, I mean, Jay, that's a great awareness that you have. And, you know, with some things that have a lot of energy and are dense and have a lot of weight, and maybe like Eckhart Tolle talks about the pain body, or Michael Singer talks about all the samskaras, like if it's got a lot of weight to it, yeah, it can, maybe you might have that experience. And this is where something like that, I would definitely suggest, if this is interesting to you, that you or whoever wants to do this and is having that experience of like having this facilitated live with somebody else. And then Byron Katie's website, they do have practitioners that do this for free, and it can be hard to get in, but whatever, you can try. So that's a great question, Janice. Yeah, who would you be without that thought? So again, if you start with the judgment of somebody else, because she says something like, we all, you know, when we judge others, like we work on our own stuff. Like all of the stuff about ourselves will come out too. So when you do this process, like I said, and then you really, what is best is you want to have a very specific situation. So in the example she gives, it's like she walks into the kitchen and her ex-husband Paul is like trying to get the cigarette smoke out of the room, or like, you know, she just, you know, she smells it and he's trying to hide it, but he lies and says he wasn't smoking when she asked. And so this work is really powerful when you have a very specific moment in time that you can do this with in a situation like that. Because it's really almost like a rewiring. So in the example, you know, Paul shouldn't lie. Go through the 3 questions. 4th question, who would I be without the thought? So how she does it in the live facilitation is she's like, okay, imagine you're there in the situation. I come in with a pencil eraser into your mind and I erase the part of your brain that thinks that thought to where you cannot think it anymore, and you're just standing there without the ability to think the thought. Who would you be? How would you feel? So the answer, and it's a then you feel into that, like, wow, I'd be at peace, I'd be relaxed, I'd be calm. And really every thought, when you question it and you get to this part, there's peace when we don't believe the thought. So that's part 1 of the work. So you do the worksheet where you get to get out all of the negative stuff. And you take, you know, and you can take many of those thoughts and do this process from the questions in the Judge Your Neighbor worksheet. And then you have the 4 questions that I just did. And then you have something called the turnarounds. So then you want to practice playing with the thought and turning it around in different ways, because again, you're questioning it. It helps to disidentify and disentangle from the belief in the thought being true. So the 4 questions are a big part of that, and then the part 2 of that is doing these turnarounds. So let me give you an example of that. So if the original thought is, Paul shouldn't have lied to me, so you want to turn it around to the self, the other, and the opposite. So Paul shouldn't have lied to me turns into Paul should have lied to me. And then you think about, I think she says 3 examples, 2 or 3 examples minimum, of how that thought could be as true or truer than the original thought. So Paul shouldn't have lied to me turns into Paul should have lied to me, is a turnaround. And then why would that be true? You know, he should have lied to me because that's what he did. He should have lied to me because now I get to, I mean, what I use a lot and people use is like, well, it's given me this experience to work with myself. So, oh, Paul should have lied to me. Let me feel into that. So does it feel as true or truer than the original thought? Some of them don't make sense, and that's okay. You just play with it. And again, this is why facilitation with somebody that has experience works, especially with the turnarounds. I'm going to look in the book about and see this. Okay. So, Paul shouldn't lie to me turns into Paul should lie to me. So another turnaround would be I shouldn't lie to Paul. So then you would think about, just like I said in this example, I shouldn't lie to Paul. Where are all the times where I've lied to him? Wow. I mean, and this was her and her ex-husband, so in a marriage situation, lies happen. I shouldn't lie to Paul. Is that thought as true or truer than the original thought? And then another turnaround could be, I shouldn't lie to myself about Paul. I shouldn't lie to myself about Paul. And then wow, where have I been doing that? So this is just like an introduction to this, so you can get a taste of how this works and what's possible for you in doing this. Just looking. And a good question she asks all the time is, does that thought bring me peace or stress? If I have a thought that brings me peace, well, you can keep it. But if the thought brings you stress, question it, turn it around. She says, ask 4 questions and turn it around. So there is a question on the worksheet, because there's like 6 or 7 questions at the top where you kind of talk into, the situation and break it down. And let's see. Let me find it. Okay. So in this Paul lying, smoking example, what is it about this situation that you don't ever want to experience again? So these are powerful questions. So if you think about somebody that's lied to you that you wish they didn't, what did you never want to experience again? I never want to feel, betrayed. I never want to experience standing in front of somebody and just knowing they're lying, whatever that is. So the way you work with that in the work is you say, I am willing to experience it again. I'm willing to experience Paul lying to me again. And that can be like, whoa. Because people are going to lie. People are going to lie in our lives. It's not never going to happen again. People will lie. So we get to do the work with ourselves so that we can free ourselves, so that when that happens again, we can have this experience of working with the thoughts. So I'm willing to experience Paul lying to me again. I'm willing to experience feeling betrayed again. And if that's like, ooh, no, she says, well, that's where you need to do more work. And then the next question is, hold on, I look forward to it. Not even being willing to be lied to again. I'm looking forward to being lied to again. Wow. That one can be confronting. Because that means there's no resistance and there's no fear and you're free. And then another of the fun questions is, what do you think of them in this situation? So Paul is a liar. Paul is immature. He's afraid. He's petty, So you write this list of what you think of them. And she says, be petty and judgmental. And then the work with that one is, okay, you're all of those things. Change Paul for you. Oh, I am petty. I am immature. So this is it's a powerful practice to get distance between just believing anything that comes into our head and freeing ourselves by questioning these thoughts. Let's see. You can do this with your body. So there's a Q&A in here, and it says, what if I don't have a problem with people? Which everybody has a problem with people, but can I write about things like my body? Yes, do the work on any subject that's stressful. As you become familiar with the 4 questions and the turnarounds, you may choose subjects such as the body, disease, career, or even God. Then you experiment with using the term my thinking in place of the subject when you do the turnarounds. So the judgment, as an example, could be my body should be strong, flexible, and healthy. So you can do the judge your neighbor on that. And then, but you switch body to thinking. My thinking should be strong, flexible, and healthy. Wow. Isn't that what you really want? A balanced, healthy mind? Has a sick body ever been a problem? Or is it your thinking about the body that causes the problem? Investigate. Let your doctor take care of your body as you take care of your thinking. I have a friend who can't move his body and he loves his life because he loves what he thinks. Freedom doesn't require a healthy body. Free your mind. So that's really powerful and confronting for some people. And I don't know if I'm spiritual enough to that if I couldn't move my body, I would have a lot of work to do. And that's okay. I mean, we have all been given this perfect curriculum in which to live. Every experience we have is perfect for our evolution and our growth. So yeah. So is anybody wanting or feeling like there's possibility here for you? Jen, perfect. You're answering my question before I ask. What do you see possible for you in practicing this? Yeah, and just like every other spiritual practice and just like every spiritual teacher talks about, we've got to do the work in every moment. You know, I mean, the Course in Miracles, I'm studying that right now. It's saying the same thing Michael Singer says, you know, we've got to be conscious of every thought in every moment if we truly want to be free. And, you know, we can use this process to start questioning the thoughts that create our suffering. So one of my favorite things, and I talk about this in my coaching a lot, you know, and this is from Byron Katie, there's 3 types of business in the world: your business, my business, and God's business. My business is everything here. Your business is everything outside, and God's business is God's business. When I am in other business or God's business, I suffer. I need to stay in my own business. In Al-Anon, they talk about orbiting around other people. So I like that too. Like, if my mind is orbiting around somebody else or something else, I'm not in my own business. Then nobody's here. Who's here when I'm over there worrying about them or arguing in my head with them or wishing something's different? Nobody's here. A thought is harmless unless we believe it. It's true. It's not our thoughts, but the attachment to our thoughts that causes the suffering. Attaching to a thought means believing that it's true without inquiring. A belief is a thought we've been attaching to, often for years. Many people think they are what their thoughts tell them they are. So let's see what other gems we have here. Hi Deirdre, nice to see you. So here's some quotes, and I also talk about this one a lot. When you argue with reality, you lose, but only 100% of the time. Isn't that so true? Notice when your mind is arguing with reality, and Michael Singer talks about this. Like, if it's raining on your birthday, he always gives that one. And say you have, a birthday picnic planned, and then it's raining on your birthday. I mean, that's God's business, right? So Byron Katie would say, you're in God's business. Byron Katie would say, you're arguing with reality and you're going to lose. Michael Singer would say, that's low-hanging fruit. You cannot control the weather, so relax and release. So look at where, we can apply this to anything. Like the wind right now. It's a bit windy. If my mind is arguing with that, I'm going to lose. I'm going to suffer. If you didn't get the job or the raise, or you got fired, if your mind is arguing with that reality, you're going to lose. This can apply to so many things, everything, really. And then she says, reality is my God, with a capital G. Because reality is what is. So what I love about all the, spiritual teachers is they all say the same thing in their own way. So they all give like a different view on saying the same thing. So another quote, if I had a prayer, it would be this: God, spare me from the desire for love, approval, or appreciation. Amen. God, spare me from the desire for love, approval, or appreciation. That's speaking to the codependency again. An unquestioned mind is the only suffering. Try that one on. An unquestioned mind is the only suffering. So that's what I was saying in the beginning, where it's never about circumstance or situation. It's only ever about our thoughts about that situation. Hi, Butterfly Rain and Elena. No one can hurt me. That's my job. No one can hurt me. That's my job. And the way we do that is with our thinking. If I think you're my problem, I'm insane. So she's got some spiritual tough love truths here, just like I always say Michael Singer does too. I don't let go of my concepts. I question them. Then they let go of me. Reality is always kinder than the stories we are believing about it. Reality is always kinder than the story we are believing about it. That reminds me of the Albert Einstein quote I say often. The most important question you can ask yourself is, do I live in a friendly universe? So if you do, then reality is going to be kind, no matter how it looks, no matter what story we're believing about it. There are no physical problems, only mental ones. Woo! Advanced level spiritual practice. Hi, Sister Sunshine. Yeah, if anybody wants this list, send me a message. I'll get it to you. So, reality is God because it rules, is another quote here. When I am perfectly clear what is what I want. So that's that, just being totally present and unattached to the present moment, however it's unfolding, whatever's occurring. Everything happens for me and not to me. Forgiveness is realizing that what you thought happened didn't. This one is really deep. Forgiveness is realizing that what you thought happened didn't. Because it's a shift in perception that occurs. So this work creates a shift in perception. I did this with a client a month or two ago, and she chose to do the worksheet on something with her spiritual teacher. And I'm trying to remember the details of the thought. Yeah, and I can't, but it was something about a conversation and, human stuff, right? Where she was upset. And she had an aha moment in doing this work to where she had a total shift in perception, to where everything she believed about this story that was so charged with negative emotion melted in a second. That's a miracle. A miracle is a shift in perception. So this can create miracles. And she was just like, oh my God, like I cannot believe this. So the last quote, yes, I'm a star. Forgiveness is realizing that what you thought happened didn't. This work holds up under all and any situation. She has done this with Holocaust survivors, incest, murder, kidnapping, like any sort of abuse. She takes it to jails. She has done this. Racism, injustice, everything. So there's nothing this doesn't hold up to. And if you have a thought that it doesn't, that's okay, and that's where you get to do your work. That's where you're not free. That's where you're believing thoughts that are creating your suffering. And if you can choose whatever you choose and know that it's a choice. I mean, that's why I love Viktor Frankl so much, because he lived in Auschwitz and lived through it. And what he saw is that you could take everything away from a person except what is in here and your ability to choose your response. It's all about mindset. Awesome, Jen. I'm so glad this has found you at the perfect time. Yes, look forward to connecting. So it's time to wrap up. So if you haven't followed me and you care to, please do so. If you care to give a donation. And as I said, this has been live streamed in YouTube as well, and this will just be automatically as a recording in there if you want to revisit or any of my live streams. I will be going live in less than 24 hours from now for my Sunday morning live. Used to be Saturday Night Live. Sunday morning live, we'll pull cards, we'll have fun. It's always fun, and I love my inner child, little Natalie, loves to play with cards, and they're very powerful messages. So I look forward to being with you all. Awesome, J.E. I'm so glad to hear that. It's helpful for you. Hi, Marcy. So, and if, as I said, like the replays are here, or well, they're in my channel. So if you want to revisit it, please do so. Catherine, welcome. Hi, Angela. Nice to see you. PST, what time is my live? Let me check. My phone's charging. 8:30, 7:30 a.m. Pacific tomorrow morning. So please join for that. I will see you tomorrow. Thank you all. Much love. Namaste.